Greetings one and all, and welcome to the Mystic Mind Analysis. I am the Nightmare Rider, Mage of Mind, reminding you as always that even a cheeseburger can be deconstructed as its original source. I've mentioned several times in my videos prior how much of a fan of epic fantasy fiction I am, with Equestria being one of my biggest inspirations to write my own stories. So reading out the synopsis for Lost Kingdom of Griffonstone, I've been hyped to see how it will play out. However, remembering how the general reactions to Equestria games were, I understand that it is very important to judge an episode based on what it is, not what I want it to be. And with that mindset, I found the whole experience to be pretty satisfying. The initial world building through Twilight narrating the lore behind the Griffon Kingdom was a kind of expansion on world building I've been hoping to see through the end of Season 4. Gilda is the only Griffon we know so far, so now we get to see if her behaviour is typical or atypical of Griffon culture, all of which is set up through the opening lore. The Griffon Kingdom was once a very vibrant place, based largely on a culture of greed and avarice, united together with the Griffon King with a single piece of treasure, a symbol of national pride. However, when a monstrous beast stole this idol, with the Griffon army barely able to find it off, the king fell into disgrace. Since then, the Griffon population has remained leaderless, falling into a state of disarray and general apathy to one another, caring only for a few bits they can afford to retain, as a reminder of who they once were when the kingdom was great. This gives us a clearly defined reason why Gilda is so absorbed and aggressive towards ponies. She comes from a culture where she's never been strong with interpersonal relationships to begin with, and so she internalizes the selfishness for her own well-being. Rainbow Dash has been her only friend since childhood, since Dash offered Gilda a safe alternative to being antisocial towards everyone while still standing up for herself. So after the events of Griffon the Brush-Off, knowing the different cultures which both of these two came from, it's easy to see why both Dash and Gilda would feel betrayed. It's little wonder why Gilda is so grumpy to see Dash come into her home, proclaimed to be on a glorious quest to save the kingdom, based on what is little more than legend to Gilda. Dash's attitude towards finding the Griffonstone reflects how she finds a reason to justify the map taking her based on what she already enjoys, seeing as the primary reason seems to have little merit. Yet based on her past experiences with Gilda, she and Pinkie are actually the best ponies to restore harmony to the Griffon populace. Dash has a prior history with Gilda, which she can relate to, while Pinkie's general enthusiasm for making creatures of any race happy leads her to drop any grudges she may have once had. This is one of Pinkie's best portrayals so far this season, as she is sensitive to those around her, maintaining her general positive attitude and finding ways to help the Griffons become more friendly to one another based on all the existing parts of their culture. But while Pinkie's portrayal is a generally positive one, Amy Keating-Rogers still makes a couple of mistakes for the sake of humour. Pinkie may sometimes act without thinking, but it should be obvious that literally throwing her rope while not giving anything to tie it to is a bad idea. Even worse, the Griffon apathy has taken a step too far when one will literally leave Rainbow Dash to die on a ledge if she is not given enough money, coming off as unnecessarily cruel for the sake of the plot. With all that said, my biggest problem may sound like nitpicking to many: the fact that we see very little of the Griffonstone kingdom itself. Now, as I said earlier, we should judge an episode for what it is rather than what it is not. But in this case, the minimal view of what is supposed to be an entire kingdom actually hurts the story because it stretches out the credibility of the goal the episode set out to accomplish. By the way Rainbow Dash immediately reacts to the Griffon Kingdom's location is in reference to Gilda, the implication is that there aren't any other Griffon populations in Equestria, so what we see is pretty much all we get. If this had been a problem with one village within the kingdom, then this wouldn't have been a problem, since it can be reduced to simply one area of a kingdom starting a revolution that affects the rest. If we look at other fantasy literature, such as R.A. Salvatore's Homeland, the matriarchal society of Menzoberranzan is one where dark elves are constantly engaging in secret wars against opposing family houses, setting a general theme for how Drizzt Do'Urden differs from the attitude of many other members of Drow kind. The entire Dark Elf trilogy bases itself around a slice of Drow culture, and even though this is just one city, it's broad enough to define this as more than an isolated case. Now, I'm not suggesting that what can be achieved in a 300-page novel is necessary for a 20-minute cartoon episode to also do, but there needs to be considerably more to show how Gilda's home with the Griffons is representative of those we saw in the background of Equestria games. In spite of this minimal scale, the best aspect of this episode is that it is a fix of Dragon Quest. Where Dragon Quest failed was it didn't actually expand on dragon lore beyond the fact that they migrate. Instead, all it did was use dragons as a template for generic teenage bully characters, offering nothing unique in terms of development or a look into dragon society. With Griffonstone, we have very clear reasons why everyone had become antisocial. They have lost the keystone of their society which defined them as a culture. Pinkie Pie's baking skills is a surprisingly clever way of changing a small aspect of their lives to help the Griffons experience friendship once more. Whereas money and treasure would always be for the benefit of the isolated individual, making Griffon scones was done for the benefit of all the community. It is a simple gesture of kindness that shows how they can all be a greater kingdom if they value each other more than material wealth, something which Rainbow Dash reminds Gilda of due to their childhood companionship. Overall, Lost Kingdom of Griffonstone makes a fantastic use of the Cutie mark as a way to pair up characters we don't normally get to see together. It gives us some amazing lore that finally provides more details into the nature of Griffons as a race, as well as developing an old secondary character in a way that effectively shows the strengths and weaknesses of both friendship teachers without them immediately knowing all the answers. The small scale of the Griffon Kingdom itself was a bit of a letdown, considering how small a representative of the entire population it was for such a big task. But considering how our hero's mission was one to restore friendship using their unique skills tailored to this environment, their goal was more than an effective success. I give Lost Kingdom of Griffonstone a final grade of a straight A. Until the next time, this is the Nightmare Rider, Major Mind, riding out.